What's up, guys? This is Adee Cazayoux, and you're listening to the Brute Strength Podcast. This week, I go round 2 with my new wife, Adee Cazayoux. Does that sound weird? Round 2? You get what I'm talking about. This one is even better than the first one. We talk about, obviously, nutrition, how to get shredded, mistakes that she sees people making, and what she's learned from her now 10,000 plus clients that have gone through Working Against Gravity. We go through also the things that have made her company so successful. Before we get started, if you have not done so yet, please head to iTunes, leave me a 5-star review, tell me how much you like the show. Enjoy. What's up, everyone? I'm here with my new wife, Adee Cazayoux. We are literally, we just moved into, we're staying in an Airbnb in Toronto for the next month. We're looking out at the city, what they call the CN Towers?
CN.
The CN Tower.
The letter C, the letter N.
Got it. Got that. So we're in our new little apartment, and one of our most popular podcasts of all time was the first one I did with Adee when she was still Adee Zucker. So, I think you can only imagine what she's going to be capable of on this next show. So first off, Adee, I'm really excited to have you back on the show. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for having me on the show again.
So let's start it off here. Your company, Working Against Gravity, just hit the 10,000 member mark. You have now worked with over 10,000 clients, which first off is absolutely incredible. To have worked with that many people one-on-one is something that I know for sure no one in the functional fitness community, bodybuilding community has ever happened before. So that's amazing. What are some of the biggest lessons that you and your team have learned from that experience, from working with so many people?
The biggest lessons, I think that we've learned that it's a lot of work to work with people one-on-one. And when you want to put out a really quality product and service out there, the things need to be a lot more organized. The service needs to be more streamlined across the board. Expectations need to be super clear for the clients as well as for the coaches. And I think one of the biggest lessons in terms of just what people in nutrition need or are doing, everybody is completely different and the same all at the same time. Everyone has different needs, and what everyone that joins our program is really looking for is some education as well as connection. So people want to feel like they're heard, that someone cares about them, that someone's looking out for them. And it really is a coaching and client relationship. You're really getting into a relationship. So after working with 10,000 people, I think that providing value to the clients has become our absolute main priority.
So we've talked a lot about in the past, like what you got, like the service that you used to provide and how that has changed over time. What has been, if anything, like the most consistent part of that that's allowed you to continue growing at every single stage?
The most consistent part of the service that we've offered, I mean, the service offering hasn't necessarily changed. So we've always offered one thing and it's always been the same thing. We've always offered a one-on-one coaching service with a formal check-in once a week and questions as often as you'd like to your coach. And there's always been a 24 hours response time. That's always been the service. It has never changed. What we have added on top of that has completely changed. But the core of the actual service and what you're getting hasn't changed. It will change in the near future. It might change a little bit, but I even think that will still stay the same. You're still getting one coach working with you. You're developing a relationship with that person, and you are going to have some type of a connection with your coach. They're going to get to know you, and they're going to help you. That's always remained the same.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably, and what you touched on a little bit ago is probably what I've learned from you guys more than anything, which is that people really, what they're paying for is that connection. And from the get-go, knowing you from very early on in, WAG's history, like that is what that was the most important thing, that everybody felt like you cared and that you were looking out for them. And it always seemed like it was just way more than counting macros. And in the past, I've definitely been guilty of thinking like when people sign up with us, it's only for the programming, which is just not the case. They're paying for a community, they're paying for a connection with a coach and all that kind of thing, all of those kinds of things. And that's just something that y'all do really, really well. So let's talk about getting shredded for a second. What is it? And you've had literally hundreds of amazing transformations and testimonials. What do you think are the characteristics that set apart the people that end up making those really big transformations and getting super shredded?
We do have a couple of blog posts on our blog about this very topic, like the difference between somebody who's succeeding and somebody who's maybe struggling a little. I think each individual has their own story. I think at the same time, we are very fortunate to be in a space of people that primarily come from functional fitness, who are already prioritizing their health and fitness. They're already dedicated to making that kind of change. They're going to go above and beyond. They're going to understand that this is not easy, and they're not afraid of the fact that it's not easy. And we've never promoted the program as being easy. So we're already fortunate that these people are willing to work hard. What makes the difference between someone in Working Against Gravity, I can't speak for any other program, but what makes the difference between someone who's succeeding with us and someone who's struggling is people who are open-minded. They're willing, they're understanding that what you were doing before you came to us didn't work. So you're going to have to try something new and something different. It might be uncomfortable. They also are kind to themselves, so they're not afraid to fail, and that is not going to deter them from continuing on the process. So they'll fail and tell their coach about it. These people are checking in with their coach every single week. If you're missing check-ins with your coach, your coach, now we have a better system for checking in with our clients when they don't check in. That was something we couldn't necessarily do in the past. But these people that aren't checking in with your coach, you're not getting the most of the program, because the success doesn't come from just the actual macros. It has nothing to do with the carbs, fats, and proteins that you've been prescribed by whatever coach you're working with. That's not where the success is. It's people that are seeing success on the program are checking in with their coach, and they're letting them know what they're doing really well, what they're really struggling with. They're getting feedback. Every single coach on our program has worked with, we've worked with almost over 10,000 people. So each coach has worked with at least 1,000 people other than the brand new coaches. And they've seen everything. They've learned a lot, and they've had so much experience, and these coaches can't necessarily read your mind through email. So the people that are very successful are compliant. They're doing what their coaches say. They're asking questions so that they understand the why. They're letting their coach in on what they're struggling with so the coach can provide them feedback and give them the resources that they need to succeed. And I think that those are the people that are making the most out of the program. But compliance and consistency is always going to be the number one. So if you're weighing and measuring everything you eat, you're letting your coach know if you can't do that, you're coming up with strategies on what to do if you can't. Just whoever is going to be the most compliant and consistent with the parameters of the program, including checking in with your coach and letting them know how you're doing, those people are always going to see the most success.
I really like what you said about, you mentioned these people are asking and understanding the why behind the whole program. Something that Julian Pineau says is he tries to teach all of his athletes the why behind their program so that they own it, right? They're a part of it. It's almost like giving them a sense of autonomy about it. If they really understand it, then they can just integrate it into their own life how they want, rather than just how their coach wants, right? Another thing about the kind of the CrossFit community, and really the sporting community in general, is very unique. It is one of that is way more open-minded to learning. And it's really cool when those people can take that kind of that vulnerability to say, I don't know everything, I'm willing to learn and put my ego aside. When they can do that outside of sport and fitness, that's when I think their entire lives start to change, right? Nutrition, mindset, relationships, all of the things that you and I like to talk about all the time. I think this community, and again, like, people that are into, just sports in general or fitness in general are, I think, more prone to that kind of thinking, like more of a growth mindset. So you've worked with, 20 plus games athletes, a few, champions, CrossFit Games champions. What's the difference nutrition wise in what you're prescribing for those athletes and what is being prescribed for your average Joe CrossFitter or your mom or your brother, et cetera?
I'm not sure if this is the answer that most people want to hear, but this is the real answer. So it's really not different. So every single program given through Working Against Gravity, or every single client that's working with a coach, that their program is 100% designed for that person and their goals. So they're still being prescribed, I guess, carbs, fats, and proteins. We're still working on what makes them feel good. We're still talking about their nutrition going into their workouts, pre-workout, post-workout. I mean, they're definitely having carbohydrates, but everyone on the program is having carbohydrates. Generally, there are some exceptions to that rule where we've tested things and carbohydrates didn't necessarily work for those people. And we're playing around with food items. We're playing around with timing of macronutrients. We're playing around with micronutrients. And we're talking about supplements. We're talking about hydration. But everyone on the program is getting those same types of conversations if they're using the program to its full advantage. The games athletes are already, they're not all the same. Some of them are more compliant than others. They go through the same types of struggles as every single other person goes in the program. They have moments where, they want to have a day where they don't want to track anything at all and they want to have a burger and french fries and a milkshake. And we go through the same struggles and the same conversations with them as I would have with anybody else on the program. They're having struggles with their body image. And at the end of the day, they could have 100% perfect nutrition and not be performing well because they're not sleeping well and they're stressing out about extraneous factors, or they're stressed out because their family's visiting them and they're living with them and they don't have their own space, or they don't know how to track eating at a restaurant, or it's not just about the macros. And that's the same thing that happens to every single person on the program. And it's not like these games athletes are really that different. Their work output is different. They're training full time and that's their full-time job. So they have more time and they're generally going to be more consistent and compliant, but I don't even necessarily think that that's true because some of our clients are more consistent and compliant than the games athletes. So I really don't think there's that big of a difference. It's pretty much the same.
I think you said, I think this is not the answer that people want to hear. I think probably like 100 people listening to this, that's not the answer they wanted to hear, right? The elite athletes, but everybody else is probably thinking, wow, that's pretty cool. Right. So I'm not that different than those types of people. A couple really important questions that came up. So these micronutrients you speak of, is that like a chocolate chip? Is that like small foods?
No.
What's the funniest thing that, like, I've heard you say a few times, like people asking for different kinds of macros, like more macros. What's the funniest thing you've heard for one of those?
Like a funny question from a client. Someone asked us once if we would sell, like, as an added value, macros. Like someone could buy extra carbs or buy extra fat or like refund some protein, People have asked that before, like that they would pay an extra monthly fee for some extra carbs. They were definitely joking, I hope. Some people have asked a lot. This happens way more often. And I can totally understand why this would happen, but I don't know if it's funny, but yeah, maybe I won't say maybe I won't say it. But the funniest question I've ever gotten was by a girl. She knows who she is if she's listening to this. She said, if I weigh one chocolate chip, it doesn't register on the scale as 1 gram. So if I eat that one chocolate chip at a time and I weigh them one at a time, do I have to calculate the macros? Because they've technically never registered as even 1 gram on the scale. Yes, you do have to track them. You would just weigh more than one at a time.
I love that story. Okay, so in the competitive community especially, there's a lot of emphasis, and in my opinion, I think in your opinion, way too much emphasis on things like supplementation, nutrient timing, which I think are kind of for like professional dieters, right? Can you talk about, you've brought up the nutritional pyramid before, and I don't know whose pyramid that is, but can you explain that pyramid and kind of talk about that for a little bit?
I'm not sure if this pyramid started with this guy, but I learned it from his book. His name is Eric Helms, and it was the Muscle and Strength Pyramid. And CrossFit, I mean, most people listening to this are CrossFitters or know some idea of CrossFit, and CrossFit has their pyramid where you need to build your base first, and then slowly you work up the base of the pyramid. And as you work up, those things are not necessarily important until you've gotten there, or as important. And I think in CrossFit, it's nutrition is the base, then it's metabolic conditioning, then it's weightlifting, and then gymnastics is the top, something like that. I know it's nutrition is the base, and then it goes all the way, and then that's where you want to start, and then you want to keep working your way up, and it just gives like a level of importance,
like a pyramid.
Yeah, like a pyramid. And so the nutrition pyramid, from that book talks about like behavior change as the overarching theme. So just behavior and your lifestyle. And then it talks about energy balance. So like calories in versus calories out. Then it goes into macronutrients after that. Then it goes to micronutrients, nutrient timing, and then supplements is all the way at the top. So the way that Eric Helms describes it is, supplements are really just burning a hole in your wallet until you've mastered everything underneath it. So if supplements are going to be really expensive, are they going to give you that extra edge beyond what you're looking for if you haven't mastered everything below it? No, I don't believe so necessarily. And I think that maybe it's a placebo effect, but if you're not already consistent and compliant with your macronutrients, if you're not already consistent with getting in some micronutrients, if you're not already consistent with your timing, then supplementation is not going to make as big of a difference. You are going to get your biggest return on your investment if you start working on the other stuff first, and then just save your money. And then when you get everything else nailed down, then definitely play around with supplements for sure.
I love that. You also have talked a lot about making sure people have the right goals to suit their diet. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I think what you're talking about is the level of flexibility and accuracy you're going to have in your diet. So there are going to be times in your nutrition where your number one goal is not to be as shredded as possible. Let's say an example is vacation, or you're an athlete and you just finished a competition and your next competition is 5 months from now. You have to assess what, this also comes from Eric Helms' Muscle and Strength Pyramid. So if you guys haven't read that, it's a sick book. You got to read it. You have to assess what level of flexibility out of 100% you're going to have in your diet, and what level of accuracy you're willing to have in your diet. So if your goal is to look like Dana Lynn Bailey at her peak on stage, you need to have 100% accuracy and 0% flexibility. Otherwise, you're leaving some stuff on the table. Like there's an opportunity for you not to look that way. If you just finished a competition and you're about to go on vacation to an all-inclusive resort, you probably can change those percentages up a bit. You can be 70% accurate and You can add in 60% flexibility into the diet where you're not necessarily going to weigh and measure every single thing you eat, and you're not going to track every single thing you eat, and you might be a little bit more lenient on portion sizes, or you might have a drink on the beach that you didn't account for. And the most important thing that comes with that level of adjusting the accuracy and the flexibility in your diet is that your expectations also have to change. So that goes back to your goal. So your goal in that week is not to look like Daniel and Bailey on stage. Your goal in that week is to spend time with your friends and family, is to still keep your goals in mind and still be conscious and aware of your food choices. But that comes with expectations. So now that your goal is not that, and your goal is to have a good time, to enjoy your vacation, you have to understand that your progress is not going to be as fast. You might not be the leanest you've ever been, and you have to be okay with that because you've already made the decision that your accuracy is not going to be as high and your flexibility is going to be higher than usual. And know that you can always go back to being less flexible and being more accurate. And once you've made that decision, you have to be okay with it. Progress is going to be slower, but that doesn't mean progress is not going to be there. And that's not an excuse to throw everything out the window. It's a sliding scale, and that's pretty much my favorite thing about flexible dieting is that there is an ebb and flow, and you can still love yourself in every single stage of your dieting journey. And it's not, people are like, oh, how do you once you flexible diet, you get to your goal, like there is no like real, your goals are constantly changing. Like in every stage of your life, you're on vacation, you're going to a competition, you're performing, you're on stage, you're whatever it is you're doing, your nutrition has to change with it. So you get pregnant, you're breastfeeding, like everything needs to change. So I think that's what you're talking about, right?
Absolutely. I think, yeah, this is a very, very important thing that's almost never discussed, this part about making sure that your goals are consistent with your actions, right? And that's what I think leads to that yo-yo dieting, right? Like we're either trying to be as strict as possible, we're weighing everything, we have the perfect timing, et cetera, or we're completely off the bandwagon, right? Because we're either saying, fuck it, like I'm gonna start in 2 weeks, or we're, working hard for 2 or 3 weeks until we fail or something like that. So I think, Will Albritton, our mutual friend, wrote us a blog post years ago, I think for like a, New Year's resolution type thing. And he talked about goals from the standpoint of, is your goal something that, is it for you and is it for something that you really want, or is it just something that you think would be cool, right? Do you want to be absolutely shredded because that's what everybody on Instagram is doing and you think that's what's cool, or do you actually want to go to be that consistent and have that, like that has very big implications on your entire lifestyle, right?
Yeah. I think that maybe where the disconnect is that people aren't selecting their goals appropriately because they're not sure what those goals actually entail. So it's like, I did CrossFit in like 2008 or 2009, and every other person that walked into the gym was like, I want to win the CrossFit Games. Now, if you said that, I think if you say that, you can't say it so lightly, because what's entailed with that kind of goal, you have to really understand the level of accuracy and the level of flexibility that you need to have. There's zero flexibility in that.
It's like walking onto a flag football field and be like, I want to go to the NFL.
Right, exactly. So people are saying, I want to be as lean as Brooke Ence, and they're not really understanding what Brooke Ence does every single day.
Good luck.
Yeah.
You haven't eaten a carb and...
No, that's not true. That is not true. But they're not really understanding. So they're having this, or they really do want to be as lean as Brooke Ence, and they're not willing to be as accurate and reduce the flexibility that she's willing to be. So then you have this disconnect between your goal and the level of flexibility and accuracy you're willing to have. And there's no shame, and there's nothing wrong with not being willing to be that accurate and not being willing to be not flexible in your diet. There's nothing wrong with wanting to go out to eat at restaurants with your friends twice a week. There's nothing wrong with wanting to go on vacation and estimate your food instead of weighing and measuring everything you eat. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to do that. There's just there has to be an understanding of what is required to achieve your goal. And if your goal is to perform the best as you possibly can and to feel amazing in your own skin, you don't necessarily need to have 100% accuracy and 0% flexibility. There is a happy medium for what works for you. And I think it should go the opposite way around. It shouldn't be like goal and then level of accuracy and level of flexibility. It should be decide what you're willing to do and then select your goal, and maybe put it a little bit out of reach so that it continues to push you and it continues to challenge you. But you can't just say you want to go to the games and then, sit and drink beers with your friends on the weekends. Like, it's just, you can't have both, or it's not going to happen.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you can't say I wanted to go to the games, but then once every 2 weeks you skip an important training session. You can't possibly do that. That that adds up over time. Here's the last nutrition specific question, and then I have a few business related questions for you. What's the biggest difference, or maybe a couple of differences in nutrition for men and women?
For men and women, we recently polled the members in our group. I poll my members in my group a lot. We have a lot of people. I like to interact with the people in the members group a lot. And I love how active they are, and they actually give me feedback. So I asked the men in the group what it is that made them join the program, or like what it is that their common struggles are. In terms of nutrition and the Working Against Gravity program, men are really, from what I'm hearing, is that they want to know the big picture. And it was funny because when I told you this story, you were like, I would never join a nutrition program if I didn't know the big picture, if I didn't know what the plan was. So the guys want to know, okay, we're going to cut down to this weight or whatever body composition you're looking for. Then we're going to reverse diet back up to this amount. And then we're going to focus on performance. And once you're 2 weeks worth of consistency, then we're going to work on nutrient timing. And then we're going to work on micronutrients. Like, they want to know what's coming up, and they want to know the plan, and they want to know technical details. And there definitely are women that want to know that too, for sure. This is not, it's not exclusive. Like, it's not exclusive to men and exclusive to women. There's going to be women that want both, but more of the women are expressing that they want the connection, that they want the feeling like somebody cares if they don't check in, or if somebody cares if they're not achieving their goal, or they want someone to stress about their progress for them instead of them having to stress about it all the time. Men aren't stressing the same amount of way. And when you're looking at a men's check-in versus a woman's check-in, there are distinct differences. And you're going to have men as well that are more similar to the women on the program. And you're going to have women that are more similar to the men on the program. But Christian Lucero is a great example. I was covering for his coach one day. Francesco is his coach on WAG, and he's a games athlete. And I opened his check-in, and it was just photos and just the Excel sheet. And I was like, hey, Christian, like, it's really good to see that you had an awesome week. But they don't have any interaction necessarily some weeks. If Christian doesn't have anything he needs to tell him, or he doesn't have any questions, he knows Francesco has his back. He knows he's there for him. They've already gone through that, but he doesn't need like the constant communication between the two of them. And he's totally cool with Francesco just changing his numbers. He doesn't need the support or the emotional support the same way. And it can go both ways, but that's just like some of the main differences we've seen. A lot of the men want to know the why. They want to know the science behind it. They want to know, the women want to know that too, but more men and women are sometimes just okay with the emotional support and the resources, and not necessarily knowing the science behind why we're making those changes.
That is so fascinating. Sorry, I had totally blanked. Yeah, that's really, really vital information to have. That's really cool. I think that we can use that a lot as well. So let's talk about some business stuff for a little bit. So I think that you can be the next Weight Watchers, and no matter what, y'all are already incredibly successful. What do you think it is, other than, you started this thing off by saying that you've always put, providing value for your customers first and foremost. What else has led to, your massive success?
I think that what has led to it's such a hard question. It's such a hard question. A lot of it is luck and a lot of it's timing. We were in the right place at the right time. There wasn't a huge presence for flexible dieting in the functional fitness community. Is a little bit of luck for sure, definitely. What has attributed? I think that what you just talked about, the whole adding value, we are constantly trying to up our game. We want to constantly provide more and more value, make people feel appreciated. We want to express gratitude to our clients. We want to give them more education, more blog posts, more of what they're looking for to make the systems of the coach interactions with the clients more streamlined. We want to make sure the coaches are checking in with the clients. We are building software to make the whole process easier. We're trying to accommodate them as much as possible. And I think the thing that we did right from the beginning was we took every single complaint or feedback seriously. If somebody's willing to come out and say something, there are 10 other people that are thinking the same thing that are just not brave enough to come out and say it. We've had people give us feedback, and if they wouldn't have said it, we've gone through their interactions with the coaches and we would have never known that they were feeling that way until they expressed that. So we take every single complaint seriously, and we try and genuinely integrate that into our program. And we're not afraid to hear that stuff. It doesn't hurt my feelings. Like, I know every single day when I go to sleep, we are trying to give the best service we possibly can. Do I think we're perfect? No. Do I think that we have so much work to do? Yeah, we can be way better. We can provide more value, but we're trying our damned hardest for sure. So I think that people can feel that. I hope people can feel that.
That was actually a little bit of an aha moment for me when you said that every single piece of feedback you take seriously, because I've kind of always taken, I definitely believe that to a certain extent, or have believed that and behaved that way in the past with Brute. But I've also thought, I've had this thought, like, you can't please everyone, which that definitely has a place. But I think I've thought that to the extent of not taking certain pieces of feedback seriously. So yeah, that's really interesting. And, the point that is really important there is, like, if one person is saying it, at least 10 people haven't or are not saying it still, which is fucking huge. I love that. You also talk a ton about your relationship with your coaches, how you treat your coaches, their work environment. Can you talk a little bit about, your philosophy about, your relationship with them, and, like, what, maybe even some of the specifics about how, their jobs?
When Working Against Gravity first started, every single person that was on the coaching staff or on the team was my friend. Like, it was my best friends. So I wanted this to be the sickest place to work. Like, I wanted to be, you hear about those work environments like Netflix that offers a year abroad program where they take your salary and they plan a vacation for you, and you can work abroad. You can work from, like, multiple different countries, and they plan it all for you, and you're with other people that are working remotely. You hear about Basecamp, who offers a sabbatical for their staff to, like, completely unplug. The importance of now these technological companies are plugged in all the time, and you don't have an opportunity to get away from the blue screen, to get away from people that are behind a screen and engage and be present with other human beings that are physically in front of you. And it's important for me for them to still get, the coaches to still get that, while also being able to work from wherever they want. And I want this to be the best place to work. And I respect and value the coaches just as much as I respect the client. There's no way that I'm going to let a client disrespect a coach, just like I'm not going to let a coach disrespect a client. I appreciate their time. I appreciate how hard they work. I appreciate how much they care about their jobs. I look out for their mental health. Our job is incredibly emotional. They're almost like miniature life coaches for all these people. And if they can't do their jobs to the best of their ability and they don't have a positive work-life balance, then the whole company is going to crumble. So it's very important to me that they are heard, that they have a safe place to raise any concerns, and that they get all the things that they're asking for sure. And that's why sometimes we can't do things that clients want. Like we can't do Skype calls, or we can't call a client instead of emailing a client. There are little intricacies like we can't do just because I respect the coach's time as much as I respect the client's time, or a client has to check in on their check-in day because the coach's time is important to me. So I think that is answering your question.
And it's common knowledge that you're supposed to do that. You're supposed to treat your employees as well as you would your clients. But to have seen you put that into practice so consistently and like to such, I don't know if I would use the word extremes, but like you give them some cool shit. It's really cool. I mean, and not even, and some of the things that you don't even necessarily like give them, like 2 of the people live in Mexico all of a sudden because they can't. 3 people live in Mexico just because they can. That's sick. I mean, that's incredible. So I think it's just inspiring to see someone walking the walk so much, because that's not something that you necessarily have to do to quote unquote make money, right? Yeah. But you're trying to affect more lives than just the people that are paying you.
Yeah, part of the thing I love about owning and being the CEO of Working Against Gravity is that I'm able to provide a lifestyle, not just for the clients. I provide a lifestyle for these coaches. They can work remotely. They can make a good amount of money. And I think a lot of business owners think about what it's doing to them. Like, I'm paying these people, they owe me. You know, like I pay them a salary. Of course they should do their job. But it's not, those people should read it's Daniel Pink's Drive, right? They should read Daniel Pink's Drive for sure, because motivation is not just about money. And I really believe that. I think I could pay them, double and they would still do their job just as well as they're doing it right now. It would not increase productivity. I don't think it would. There has something to be said about the intrinsic motivation and about feeling heard and having autonomy and being able to make decisions for yourself. Just because you pay these people doesn't necessarily mean they owe you something, and you shouldn't treat them that way. Because when they leave, you're going to be like, damn, I wish I would have treated them better. Someone once told me, they were like, you should treat people like as if they were about to leave. Like all the things that you would do to keep somebody, you should treat them that way all the time. I think it was the somebody from Netflix. I think it was whoever runs Netflix.
I love that. And real quick, I love that you brought that up. That book Drive, I think the research shows like after $60,000 or $70,000, there's diminishing returns on how much it improves motivation. And the 3 most important things that he found to be important in motivation are passion, to give people something that they're passionate about, give them the autonomy to do things their own way, and give them the path to mastery or the resources to master something. And if you're a gym owner out there, I want you to be able to kind of take what we're talking about and apply it to your gym. And I think back on, working for Tommy Hackenbrook when I was first starting to work as a CrossFit coach. And at one point, I remember literally thinking, wow, this guy really cares about us so much. He's investing so much in us. I'm going to work my ass off for him. And one of the biggest things was that he was bringing in all of these specialty coaches. He brought in Dusty Highland to work with us on gymnastics, so it made us better athletes, but also allowed us to coach people better. He brought in a physical therapist that did the same, right? It taught us so much, and he brought in a bunch of these kinds of people, and it was just so stimulating for me, and I felt like I was learning so rapidly and stuff like that I worked as hard as I could for him. So I think those kinds of little things can go a long way in motivating your team. for the gym owner out there that wants to kind of do an overhaul, a nutritional overhaul for his gym, right? He wants to change the culture. Maybe the culture is one that doesn't care about their nutrition as much, or they're just not getting what they want. Do you have any advice for affecting like an entire culture, an entire gym of people?
I think this also might be an answer that people don't want to hear. I think if you're a gym owner, I think it is very important for you to start implementing nutrition in your gym. Regardless of how hard these people work out, you can't control what they're putting in their mouth. So if you don't have some type of system or program or philosophy for these people to follow, they're not going to get the best results that they possibly could. It's just the nutrition is going to physically change their body. So if you can physically change their body, it's going to have the fastest path to visible change. Of course, working out's going to visibly change your body. You're going to increase muscle mass. You're going to build strength, and you're going to see more muscles. But a lot of times when people do CrossFit, the increase in exercise equates to increase in calorie intake. So they're not going to see much of a difference. And I've heard so many people say I've gained weight because of CrossFit because it's like muscle mass, but they don't. That's not true. Like, it's just not, because you look the same, or you see you're gaining body fat. So I definitely think it's important. If you start seeing physical changes in your members, it's going to increase your retention. You're going to provide more value to these people. They're going to feel more loyal to you. They're going to attribute this shift in how they feel about themselves to you. Like, you're going to be the reason that their lives have changed, not just because of what they're physically capable of, but this newfound appreciation that they have for their physical bodies. So that's first, I think it's important. Second, I think that you as the business owner need to be following whatever you're preaching. So if you're not doing it, they're not going to do it. It has nothing to do with what you say. I can tell, I probably don't do this the best way. Like, I'm not the best example of this for my staff, but if I don't unplug sometimes, why would my coaches unplug? I'm not doing it. They're not going to listen to what I say. They're going to listen to what I do. They're going to do what I do, not listen to what I say. So if you're not invested in some type of nutrition and whatever it is, it could be paleo, it could be zone, it could be tracking your macros, it could be just emphasis on incorporating healthy foods or micronutrient dense foods, or it could be a Whole30. It could be whatever it is. You have to be doing it, because then you're going to be able to teach it better. You're going to be setting an example. And I think whatever it is that the gym owner's doing themselves, that is going to be what they should be teaching their members.
I think everybody should just get and stay in ketosis.
Oh, keto. I didn't mention that. If it's keto, you can do keto too. I think that's great.
I always make the joke to Adee. Like, if I go a single meal without carbs, I just joke that I'm in ketosis and my breath stinks and I feel so terrible. Okay, a couple more questions. WAG has become way more than counting macros. What do you think? Yeah, like, what is that? What is it becoming, and where do you see it going in the future?
It's such a weird thing to talk about, like the awesome things about your own business, but it's become so much more than counting your macros. We're changing lives on another level other than just being consistent with tracking your food. What is it becoming? It's becoming an awesome community of positive, like-minded individuals that really constantly want to better themselves beyond just tracking your food. People are buying into the community. They're buying into what Working Against Gravity stands for. And I think what we stand for is self-love, self-appreciation, bettering yourself, sustainable, positive eating habits, accepting you for who you are, understanding your own self-worth. And that's going to translate when I first started doing CrossFit, when I would preach CrossFit to other people, I would say, or when I was at the peak of my athletic career in weightlifting, I would say how weightlifting or CrossFit had changed my life in so many ways beyond the gym. And it taught me work ethic, and it taught me how if I could if I just consistently put in work towards something, I could really get whatever I wanted, or it taught me what I was capable of, or it taught me to push through fear or having courage. And I think Working Against Gravity is becoming a community that is very similar, and it's not something you can really explain unless you're a part of it, which is very similar to CrossFit. Like when somebody's never done CrossFit before, how many of you guys have had a hard time explaining what CrossFit is? It's just, you're like, oh, you just have to try a class. Like you'll get it when you're in it. I think it's becoming that kind of a thing where there's like the membership stands for more than just I'm tracking my macros. It's, yeah.
Great answer. I love it. Okay, let's wrap it up. I'll tell you this. Adee can be found now on Instagram at Adee Cazayoux. That's Cazayoux. I guess you don't know how to spell her first name either. Adee Cazayoux.
People made fun of me. My maiden name is Zucker, Zukier, and they said that I'm the only person that goes from one confusing last name to a more confusing last name.
It's a cooler name. What do you want people to be on the lookout for in the near future, and where can people find out more about Working Against Gravity?
So this launches on Monday, right?
Yep.
So tomorrow, which is Sunday, so yesterday for you listeners, we launched a holiday guide for how to keep your goals and your nutrition in mind when you are going through the holidays, whether it's Thanksgiving or Christmas. Has a bunch of tips and strategies for staying on track, a bunch of things to consider. We have a tracking cheat sheet on there. We have some ways to adjust some of your standard holiday meals to be a little bit more calorie friendly. You can get there by going to workingagainstgravity.com and to the Test Yourself tab. It will be there, or you go to our blog. There will be a blog post about that as well. And for anything else in the future, sign up for our newsletter.
No, sign up for our newsletter.
At brutestrengthtraining.com.
Seriously, we are about to launch another YouTube playlist called The Brute Shoot. So we're going to be putting out 4 or 5 very different kinds of videos every single week. And signing up for the newsletter is the easiest way to keep up to date on all of that stuff that we're putting out. It's going to, it ranges from very technical to things like, trending things in the CrossFit community, very fun things like that. So whatever you're into, we're going to be having a lot of videos for you. Adee, this was our best one yet. Thank you.
Thank you.